we've ever produced in terms of just highlighting the progress that we're making, the great work that the Valley is undergoing with respect to air improvement efforts. A lot of good examples in there. As part of releasing that report, we did a press release that also announced, which is also profiled in the report, the recent milestone the Valley's met with meeting the 15 microgram PM 2.5 standard this last year in 2024. That's 15, 20 years in the making of just hard work by Valley Ag, businesses, agencies, residents working together to reduce air pollution, working with the state, federal governments as well. So that's highlighted in the report. We got quite a bit of press actually when that was issued. That was kind of in conjunction with some of the media that also happened just by coincidence at around the same time with the American Lung Association's report that came out, where I think that report did highlight some of the major challenges that we've seen recently with some of the wildfire impacts. So large parts of the country, well over half of the country received F scores under they actually have a scorecard in that report by county, and the majority of counties received an F score in that report, a lot of it due to wildfire impacts. In that report, if you look at it carefully, you'll see that it actually highlighted that Fresno and Bakersfield have experienced the cleanest air quality, in the history of American Lung Association doing that report, which I believe is somewhere around 26 years that they've been issuing that report every year. So there is some positivity even in that report that does highlight, I think, more of the ongoing challenges that we're seeing. So I think between both reports, there was quite a bit of, you might have seen some media around the work that's going on and some of the improvements that are being made. And both reports, I think, provided, I think some level are certainly a lot of value locally as to the local efforts. And I think the American Lung Report nationally highlighted some of the issues that we're seeing with wildfires. And I think really just emphasizing the importance of forest management. And I was happy to see that at the state level here in California, that the American Lung Association focused on the need for farmer funding. They actually specifically highlighted the need to actually have these incentive-based measures that really support, the ongoing transitions of ag equipment and in a cost-effective way, reducing air pollution continually. I also want to note that just recently here in this last week, there's a new board member appointed to the district's governing board. Is Council Member Jose Rodriguez. He's a council member out of the city of Madera. So there was a process that was undergone, and there was the special city selection committee met last week to make that appointment to the board. So he will be, there's an outgoing board member, Mayor Preciado from the city of Avenal, who's been on our board for 6 years. He's at the end of his term and has done a great job in serving as a board member. Jose will be replacing him in that city role. And lastly, just wanted to note that our May budget hearing is coming up next week. It's May 15th. This is a public hearing to discuss the district's budget and take public comment. There's no action on the budget at that meeting that happens in June. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that upcoming hearing. And with that, Madam Chair and CSC members, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments in Modesto?
No questions or comments in Modesto.
Any questions or comments in Bakersfield? None. Any questions or comments in Fresno?
Yes, good morning. Samir, with the Mayor Preciado leaving, does that still allow those folks of that community being on that side of the valley to still be involved as the mayor? Those city folks, can they be on like the CAC or the EJAG? Does that allow them to move in those positions if they wish to? Do you know? Or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in the Valley, we have 60 total cities. I think in San Joaquin County, you're certainly aware of this fact. Others may not be aware that just recently Mountain House became a city. And so they now have they also have representation on the Special City Selection Committee as part of the governing board process. So they're the latest city addition. But the question of, how can cities continue to be involved, even when they aren't necessarily in one of the 5 board seats that are allocated to cities. There's 2 large seats and 3 non-large or 3 smaller city seats. there's 60 cities, 5 board seats, right? So there's always going to be 55 cities that aren't technically on the board. But yes, I mean, at each of the county levels, through this body, the CAC, or the EJAG is another body, but I think this one is one that, specifically has, city roles. Certainly there's opportunity for the county in their process to say if the city of Avenal had somebody that was interested in being serving in say a city role here on this body, it absolutely is something that's available. That I'm not sure, like there's openings that come up depending on, where the vacancies are and all that. And I think that would be the real opportunity for somebody to show interest when there's an opening for a seat like that. And then of course, all the work that we do, the outreach that we do, we engage with all the cities on ongoing efforts, whether it's grants, whether it's communicating and educating, if residents are interested in air quality and coming to council meetings. And that's something that happens on an ongoing basis, kind of regardless of whether or not, that specific city serves on the board. That's something that we definitely want to make sure every city is supported in all of the partnership efforts that we try to promote.
And then the second part, Madam Chair, would be he will be recognized in May at the May meeting. Perfect.
Yes, there will be an item on the agenda recognizing his service to the board.
Super. Thank you very much.
Just a quick question from the standpoint of budgetary aspects, and I know we're state, but has the federal cuts impacted at this point the situation as it relates to the budget of the Air Pollution Control District?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, so we're a special district. We're a regional, so we're local, I would say, in terms of our description. We're not a state agency, we're not a federal agency, and to answer your question specifically on the federal funds, we do get some level of federal funding. It's on the order of magnitude of 3 to 4% on the, like in terms of our operational budget, and so it is important to keep a really close eye on those federal funds, but it's not the majority of our funds, and so I think we haven't seen any impacts yet to those funds. A lot of the funds that you've heard about are pass-through funds. We had, for example, a grant that we had received that was a community kind of a partnership grant, and that grant did get canceled. On the positive side, we had spent somewhere about 75 to 80% of the funding already and got most of the work done. And so what we were talking about was kind of the remainder of those funds. And so we worked with our community partners and we're able to, and we'll see, maybe there's an opportunity in the future to I think there's a lot of legal challenges going on with a lot of these decisions that are being made. And so there's a possibility that grant may come back at some point in the future. But we've had kind of that's probably the single sort of like biggest impact that we've seen in terms of direct sort of cut on the grants. Now, as the budget process continues to play forward, there's a new budget being discussed right now. There's I think going to be a lot of debate in general about budget kind of nationally. There's probably already following some of the news around that. That we'll see if there's impacts to, and those impacts, by the way, would be national. It wouldn't just be specific to us, but the funding that I just mentioned, the 3 to 4%, those are the types of funds that every state basically gets, no matter where that state stands, politically. Every state gets, some level, I would say minimal level, but still important level of contribution to help states all deal with all the air quality mandates, right? And so I think there's going to be a major push to make sure that none of those funds, get impacted, while there could be big debates around some of the other bigger issues that are happening. We're pretty in the media, you've probably seen it play out here, but the budget negotiation is going to be a very difficult one, I think, in the coming months.
Without demonstrating my ignorance too much, but you made the comment that we're a special district, not federal, not state. Can you clarify that to the point from a funding standpoint?
Yeah. So through the chair, if I could, just a quick response to that. So we're an agency that was created in the Health and Safety Code, and not to go back too far in history, but what we used to be was basically a county level. There were 8 different air pollution control districts, and then there was state law that was formed. Given that we share an air basin, and that there was a lot of regulatory issues with having 8 different sets of rules, just across the border. No real reason for the air kind of travels throughout the valley. about 30 plus years ago, under the Health and Safety Code, we were created as basically it's a special district. It's a type of agency, and so we, in that law, our board, for example, is defined. We have the 15-member board. It's made up of different types of members, and our budget is comprised of a variety of different sources. We have everything from the permits that we issue and the fees that are associated with. We permit a variety of operations. To funds like the federal funds. We also get state funds. There's some ongoing operational funds. There's also some of the grants that we advocate for. You all support those generally, like the farmer funds and other funds. With all those funds, there's resources available to implement those programs, and so those funds are used. So we, basically our budget is essentially made up of all these different either local, state, or federal sources, and we operate under this authority that's given to us under the Health and Safety Code. Where we're given the mandate to come into attainment of standards, to develop plans and rules and other measures, which of course we do a lot of incentive-based measures as well as part of that effort. And hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure if I guess that, yeah.
You clarified it. It originates from state law. So I mean, to that degree, it is under the purview of the state of California as opposed to the federal government. It's just the funding comes from a variety of sources, is what you're indicating. That's
correct. Yeah. So we're definitely a creature of state law, as say a city or a county might also exist under state law. But our budget, for example, like when the state develops a state budget, we're not a part of the state budget. We're not a state agency, right? And that's an important differentiator as compared to say CARB or some of the other state agencies, that actually operate as state bodies, whereas we operate more as a local body.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the latitude, by the way, Chair, for letting me appreciate the questions.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item 8, verbal report from California Air Resources Board. Mark Hickson.
You should be coming up on Zoom here. In the meantime, Mr. Liba is also in attendance for the record.
Hello,
I
good
believe,
morning.
oh, there's Mark. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. Am I okay to proceed?
Yes, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have 3 items to provide updates on. There was no board meeting in April, and so I have some public workshops and meetings that I'll verbally discuss here. There is a research webinar on the effects of transportation and land use strategies on vehicle use and emissions. This workshop has already passed. It was on May 1st from 1 to 3 p.m., but I wanted to include it since it wasn't on the last update. This workshop may be of use to MPOs as they create sustainable community strategies that reduce greenhouse gas emissions to comply with SB 375, and to others as they consider similar issues. The seminar discussed the outcomes of strategies, their relative costs, and how quickly they can be expanded to take effect when implemented. The recording and presentations have not yet been posted, but they should be posted once they are available. The next workshop that I wanted to discuss, an evening community meeting, Clean Transportation Incentives for a Cleaner California, Budget Access Clean California Equity Symposium. This is going to be held on May 20th, 2025 from 5 to 7 p.m. During this meeting, CARB staff will give an update of the governor's May budget revision for clean transportation incentives. This presentation will be followed by summaries of the recent Access Clean California Program work group, and the 2025 Clean Transportation Equity Incentive Symposium. And the last item I have on public workshops and meetings virtual public workshop series to commence discussion of California's corporate greenhouse gas reporting and climate-related financial risk disclosure programs. This workshop will consist of a morning session where staff will present an overview of SB 253, 261, and 219 legislation, a timeline for regulatory development, an overview of feedback received from stakeholders from the December 2024 California Climate Disclosure Information Solicitation. Additional presentations will include a comprehensive analysis of greenhouse gas accounting and reporting mechanisms that currently exist across various regulatory and voluntary programs. Staff will take verbal feedback during the workshop, and workshop materials will be posted on the webpage by 9 a.m. on May 28th. And I wanted to also hand this over to Michael Benjamin from CARB. If you could elevate him to a panelist, he has an item as well.
Thank you. He should be coming up shortly.
Great.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. There's been some discussion about budget issues this morning, and I think it's very relevant. CARB, along with other state agencies, was directed earlier this fiscal year to reduce our budget as well as our staffing by 8%. So we have had a significant budget impact as well as loss of staff, but our mandate and our requirements, our workload has not changed. Therefore, we've had to go back and look at our priorities and what we need to focus our staffing resources on. And one of the things that we're going to need to change is our attendance at the CAC meetings. We will no longer be able to attend on a monthly basis, but we will be willing to come and participate on a quarterly basis. So I just wanted to share that with the CAC so that you're aware that the next time that we will be appearing before you is in 3 months. So that was my update. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions or comments in Modesto on this item? Seeing none, any questions or comments in Bakersfield?
No,
Seeing
is 5
none.
minutes going to make a difference? Listen, the CARB gentleman bringing an update. So we're spending with you maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and that's going to make a difference in your budget. I'm not following that. To me, it's more isolation and not wanting to meet with industry or the public. Comments back from the Air Resources Board?
Happy to do so. It's actually a lot more than 5 minutes, Mr. Clark. We attend the entirety of these meetings. We spend a lot of time preparing for these meetings, preparing materials for these meetings. And so it is not a question of the budget, it is a question of staff resources. And so it is not the best use of our time to be here every month. So I'm conveying to you that, yes, we have looked at the full impact on our staffing and our ability to be here. We value and we have very close working relationships with many of the stakeholders in the Valley, as well as the local air district, who we meet with multiple times a week. So we will continue to have these relationships. We value those relationships, but this is one area where we feel like we're going to have to cut back.
I'm not buying it, but thank you for the comment.
I have a comment
other-
in Modesto for the chair.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So is CARB going to revisit how it engages with the community across the state in terms of providing feedback and outreach? I think Mr. Clark's point with regard to the isolationism is a certainly a valid one. And given the fact that CARB's website is very, very difficult to maneuver, even for those of us who routinely go onto the website to retrieve information, it's a mess. So, I mean, my question is CARB going to take a hard look at its public engagement plan so that we all have a clear expectation of how they intend to engage with the public and with those groups such as the CACs across the various air districts and the governing boards for that matter, and how to create effective lines of communication for feedback? Thank you.
So just for everybody's education, this is the only one of the 35 air districts in California where we meet on a monthly basis with a citizens advisory committee like this. It is the only one of the 35 local air districts where we meet like this. And so I think we have gone above and beyond as an agency to have very close coordination with stakeholders. There is no requirement that CARB participate in these meetings, and we have been doing so historically as a courtesy to the district and to the stakeholders. And so I just want you to all understand that this is not the type of meeting that we have consistently with any other air district in California, including the South Coast Air Basin or other air basins that are in air districts that are larger than the San Joaquin Valley.
We'll go ahead and move to Fresno. Any comments in Fresno, Mr. Triso?
Yes. When we meet with CARB again in 3 months, I'd certainly appreciate if you could report on the cap and trade funds and their utilization in the state budget. Is that possible?
So I will not be here in 3 months. This is my last meeting. I'm retiring from CARB after 32 years and 25 years working with many of you in the Valley. My time has come to an end, so you will have the opportunity to work with Mark. If you would like to have agenda items that you would like CARB to speak to, please, as we have requested in the past, please send us those requests in writing and we will try to accommodate them.
Well, through the chair, if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. And congratulations on your retirement, and your service to the state is appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, congratulations. Yes, it's been an exciting last 10 strong years of, and I remember when you used to have a lot more hair, young man, and much darker too. But again, thank you for all of that. Michael, this is not taken toward you or Mark. This is taken toward the administration. San Joaquin Valley is a wholly different air district than the South Coast or the Bay Area. We have transport issues coming in. We have wildfires coming in. All of those things come into the valley. So we are totally a different air district. I believe that CARB, that the administration, and I'm going to refer Michael to the administration, okay, not you. The administration's decision to leave the San Joaquin Valley, there's a word we use, lost sheep, okay? And we're not important enough to deal with those, but yet we have a tremendous amount of activity going on. CARB also crafts a bunch of laws and regulations and rules. Very difficult to follow, very difficult to follow. But when I hear the budget of cutting a staff time, but we yet can spend the money on developing electric cars to go around the state and monitor air quality, driving down the freeway and see what emissions are coming out of a farm, or maybe a cow's burping on the freeway, or maybe some oranges are off gassing in the orchard because they hit the ground and they're rotting, But we're going to have these electric cars going around checking air quality stuff when it's a total insanity. We have federal and state monitors already out there. But to suddenly cut communications by the administration to 4 times a year, I think is a destruction. I think it's disrespect for what the San Joaquin Valley is trying to do. I believe the administration, 8%, in my personal opinion, is not enough. I know programs that should be removed totally. But I'm going to say this not to you, Michael, or not to Mark. This is a retaliation by CAR because it did not get its waivers. It did not get its clean truck fleets. It didn't get the TRUs. I mean, it didn't get a lot of things because of a new administration. But also CARB failed tremendously at the administration level, failed to actually have the right emission standards to even achieve a clean air, 0 emission by 2035 is insane. But yet, we have to get those mandates. And now that the waivers aren't there, pretty much the administration has said, you air districts go figure it out and you go after stationary sources. Okay, we'll shut everything down. And yet we're not going to meet it. So I'm very, very disappointed in the administration and its budget. And I think I need to go up there, go through its budget and start redlining, do a little mini DOD program here to clean up the waste. But your staff have been very, very important, Michael. From Lynn Terry to Lynn, all of the staff, Peter Venturini, I can name them all from 1990 to now. And there's been a great communication, just like the study agency is the most important part of everything. It's called research, legitimate research. That's how we reduce emissions, not some piece of research that was done on Mars or in some other country that has no relationship to what we have. But I will go on the record as a member of the CAC, extremely disappointed, and matter of fact, irritated at the administration, even at the CARB board where this happened. Our district deserves communications and working and talking and trying to figure out things rather than saying, well, we'll see you in 4 months. Do what you can. That is not you, Michael, and that is not Mark. So I'll stop there, Chair, but I'm extremely disappointed. CARB needs to be looked at totally. The Taj Mahal needs to be removed out of Riverside, the Glass Palace, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe go back to the Coke building down on, I don't know, was it 5th Street or 4th Street in Sacramento? But again, Michael, we thank you for everything you've done, working with us on the Ag Smoke, you and Richard Corey, and a group of folks, to Lucina, to Michelle, a bunch of great people, and Edie. So thank you for that, and congratulations on your retirement. Now you can sit back and watch the sparks and the fireworks go off. But Mark, welcome aboard, and I want to see you next month. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to go to the press. But Mark, I look forward to seeing you next month, okay? If we have to raise some money, if we can have a cake sale, we'll raise money and send it to CARB to have you come on, okay? And we can figure out how that retirement fits into there. But we will do what it needs to be done for this valley, for the people, for the air district, for the industries. So thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair, for the dissertation.
If I could, Madam, I agree with what Mr. Cunha has indicated. This is an administration decision, but I certainly would hope that our local assembly members and senators from the state would get involved to inquire and to find out from the standpoint what can be done to get the kind of communication, because we represent all aspects of this valley in our area, from city representatives, environmental, agriculture. It's a broad spectrum of the community that we report back to and to not have communication from the board on an ongoing basis. But I would hope that assembly members and senators would inquire from north to south. So those of you in the north and the south, as well as here in Fresno, that's where I would hope that some of the communication would take place.
Any other comments in Fresno? Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. And I just want to reiterate that I do agree with my colleagues in the north and the south and here in Fresno, just to go on the record of saying that I think communication is key, transparency is key. So to pull back from that is a little bit frustrating, as you can tell, for all of us here and the industries that we represent. So I hope at some point in the future that you reconsider. And what I do have a question. If there is in the quarterly reports, if there's something that we have asked, will we get the update in the next quarter, or how will that be reported back to us?
It would likely be in the next quarter, but we will discuss internally at CARB.
If we have a question, comment, or concern, we will wait 3 months to get an answer for that. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
We
You're to succeed from the union.
Sorry, go ahead.
we will try to be as responsive as possible.
Even if it's not in person, would there be some type of electronic communication that would be maybe given to us in some way quicker than quarterly?
I can't make that commitment today.
Thank you for your consideration. We'll go ahead and move on to.
Madam Chair, excuse me, before we leave this, I would like the CAC to write a letter when you're as the chair of the CAC to the chairman of the board and to our governor and relating to our frustration and to not get an answer, but have to wait for 4 months even, or even whatever. But I think we need to send a letter to Madam Randolph Chair and to her deputy, but also CC to every board member, and then to the governor on the total disrespect to the San Joaquin Valley and throwing us out there in the ocean with no raft, and we're just going to drown in the salt water. Maybe lucky a whale may come by and pick us up or eat us, so we don't have to suffer as much, right? But I think we need a letter. I'd like, if council can agree, if maybe Samir, if they can weigh in, can we legally do that? Can we have a letter done today and craft it with the staff, with our assistants, and get that off immediately sent to Randolph and the governor?
And Madam Chair, I would agree with Mr. Cunha, but I would add that we CC our assembly members and state senators.
100%. 100%.
That was going to be my comment.
100%.
Through the chair, just wanted to see if any other members were going to jump in. Although there may be somebody in the regions that may want to. I think I heard a voice.
I have a comment in the north.
Go ahead.
This is Jamie Eggers. I would like to ask CARB if there's any way they could consider some type of compromise, such as not sitting through the entire meeting, but exiting after they give their monthly update.
So in full transparency, we have had numerous discussions with Mr. Sheikh about CARB's participation in the CAC and about, honestly, the lack of respect that has been shown to CARB staff over many meetings, over the course of many meetings. The value that CARB has been deriving from these meetings has been limited, to be very honest. And we have been considering whether participating in the CAC had value at all for CARB. The compromise we have landed on is the one that I am sharing with you now. So we believe that this is a compromise that strikes a balance between CARB being here every month versus CARB not being here at all.
So if I could cut to the chase, when you throw in that lack of respect aspect, it gives the impression that this is somewhat retaliatory, as opposed to information that this committee is entitled to under the circumstances. And we represent constituents and individuals in different areas. And it's more what we get out of your participation, not what you get. You're the board. We represent individuals in the community. So I'm a little confused as to the rationale that you've indicated, Mr. Benjamin. With due respect.
Through the
I have
chair.
I have nothing
If I
to
could-
add.
We have a representative from Assembly Office that would like to speak. I'm going to grant him that opportunity.
You could raise it.
Also
Raise the mic.
an alternate of this.
I was checking. Is this on? Oh, it is on.
Yes.
Afternoon, guys. My name's Matthew Tuttle. I am district coordinator for our Assemblywoman Macedo that covers Kings County, Tulare County, and Fresno County. And just a couple comments. I want to tell you that the comments that have been made for about last 10 minutes are not falling on deaf ears. This will be taken back to our local Assemblywoman Macedo. And if you guys want to reach out to me directly, Executive Director Samir has my contact as well.
Thank you, sir.
To the chair, just a couple of things. First of all, my consistent position on this topic of CARB's involvement has been one of both understanding or trying to understand, CARB's perspective. But by the way, I do want to congratulate you, Michael, on your service as well, and appreciate your many years of serving the Valley and being here as part of the CAC. So definitely a big moment for you, and very happy for you for that. My position has been that it's very important for CARB to be here on a monthly basis. And that's my last communication that I've had with CARB. I do understand, Michael, what you're saying. I think that, you do have to make decisions kind of based on a variety of factors. And I think what you're hearing from the CAC is a lot of concern, about the frequency issue. And I think to your point about the letter, I'll check in with council. I do think that the chair, if there's consensus amongst the group here, I think that you do have the ability to basically voice your concerns, with what's coming up today. If there is a need to maybe bring it back to the agenda, I'll check in with council and see if that's something that requires, something beyond just simple direction today. Which of course, we're here to provide administrative support, so we can help you with that. But I do want to make sure it's clear, kind of for the record here that, we would love for CARB to be here every month. I think that any concerns from CARB about, lack of respect or those, I think those always should be taken seriously. I think that, we all deserve to work in an environment, where we feel respected. And so I think any specific issues that, may have come up in the past, certainly I've always been interested in making sure that, CARB always feels welcome here. But, issues you have to separate, I think, a public engagement and talking about difficult issues from very specific, instances of perhaps where somebody maybe didn't feel respected. So without getting into the weeds of that, I just wanted to, again, note for the record, that I feel very strongly, and this is a Brown Act body, we're here to provide administrative support. So I speak in my capacity as, sort of the staff lead, in trying to support this body. But I feel as the executive director of the agency very strongly, in support of having a respectful environment. And so obviously just want to make sure, CARB always feels that with whatever I can do in my role. But overall, though, it is very important. There's a lot of issues that are going on at the state level, a lot of different, as you just heard, workshops going on. So I think it is a very worthwhile investment. I would argue that agencies like ours and CARB always benefit from engaging with the public. It's not, when we do workshops, it's never a courtesy. When we show up to a meeting to provide a presentation to a city council, to a civic organization, a CBO, whoever it may be, it's never a courtesy. We always view it as something that gives us return, actually, because we're hearing from the public, and not only are we educating that group or that community, but we're also learning something in the process of doing that. And so I think there's tremendous value to all of the agencies to be a part of this type of process, and that's an argument that I've consistently made to CARB leadership.
Thank you, sir. I also want to add, disagreement, in my opinion, personally, doesn't equate to disrespect. So that's just my view on this. I know it's apparently a controversial topic, but a lot of us on here don't have the option when things get tough, or we don't like something, or don't like the way the discussion's going, that we get to retreat. So I just want to make that clear that I hope you can understand the frustration of the people that sit on this board, and what it means to all of us in our industries and areas that we represent. It kind of feels like a slap in the face, and I'm sure the public will probably feel that way as well. But I do thank you all for your time, and I do want to congratulate Mr. Benjamin on your retirement. And so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to.
Can we, if I may, can we address the issue of what Mr. Cunha indicated as far as the letter is concerned? It's my belief that item 8 sufficiently sets out the report that comes from the California Air Resources Board, and with the information that we received today, if we should have a consensus to send the letter in question. And as long as this committee feels it's necessary, and we have a consensus with the North and the South, we can proceed and make sure that the representatives get a courtesy copy of what it is we're sending.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and ask for if there's consensus in Modesto for writing the letter. I can't see the screen, so either like a thumbs up or yes, verbal yes, or nod, something.
Hands were raised.
I can't even see that. I'm gonna have to bring my glasses.
Can somebody from Modesto comment? It will bring you up on the screen.
Here, we are here in Modesto.
Is there consensus from Modesto to move forward?
Yes.
Looks
Modesto
like
has
consensus. Thank you. Now Bakersfield, is there consensus to move forward with this?
Yes.
Okay, and in Fresno, is there consensus to move forward?
Absolutely.
All right, so we have consensus to move forward with that. Moving on to item 9, update on attainment plans and rules. Tim?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning. As introduced, my name is Tim Franquist, Planning Manager here at the district, and I'll be providing you with an update on rule and planning activities. First, to begin with the activities, the 1997 PM 2.5 15 microgram standard. As reported last month, the first major, a little closer. As reported last month, the first major procedural milestone of certifying the air quality data by the district and CARB has occurred. The district is now working on a redesignation request and maintenance plan for the first of the 2 10-year maintenance periods to cover both the 1997 PM 2.5 standards. To that end, the district held a workshop on April 28th to kick off the public process, and we're planning to bring the proposed maintenance plan to the governing board in 2025. With regards to our rural development efforts, the governing board will be considering proposed amendments to a set of district fee rules on May 15th. The district also is continuing work on rules that we committed to amend, including the ozone contingency measures. Those amendments encompass updates to 5 coding rules, and we're planning to schedule an additional workshop on this project in the coming months. And then lastly, the district held a scoping meeting on April 30th for Rule 4901, wood burning furnaces and wood burning heaters, consistent with the commitments to the 2024 PM 2.5 plan, including evaluating extension to the wood burning season through the end of March. That concludes my updates. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions or comments in Modesto?
No questions or comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any questions or comments in Bakersfield? Seeing none, any questions or comments in Fresno? Thank you so much for your presentation. We'll move on to item 10, residential wood smoke reduction strategy and report on 2024-2025 winter season air quality. John and
Surprise.
yeah, I was like, that's not Jamie.
You,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not John and not Jamie. Good morning. I'm Robert Gillis, not John Clausen, and this is Heather Hikes with me.
not Jamie Holt.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks for having us here for the update. I'll get us going and then share with Heather as we proceed through the slides. Just a little bit of background, the importance of the district's residential wood smoke reduction strategy is definitely due to the health impacts from wood smoke and the inhalation of the wood smoke. Scientific research links the prolonged inhalation of wood smoke to a variety of health effects like lung disease and decrease in lung function for children, hypertension, heart disease, cancer, heart failure, et cetera. There's definitely known and researched and studied of health effects from wood smoke. Also, residential wood smoke emissions are one of the largest sources contributing to direct PM2.5 in the valley. And these emissions also happen during the evening time and overnight hours when the atmospheric conditions and the surface weather conditions have temperature inversions that trap the emissions near the surface, which is where we're all at. And that's one of the reasons that it becomes more of an important factor. The district has the strategy for reduction of residential wood smoke emissions overall, and this has been a really effective strategy at the district over the years in the valley. So the wood burning curtailment program, so I'm a little conscious now. Hopefully, it sounds like it's cutting out, but I think I'm good. The curtailment program is a very highly cost-effective program. It reduces emissions, large reductions in emissions at a low cost. And so these are direct improvements to public health from reductions of residential wood smoke emissions because they happen where they're most needed and at the times when it's most needed, like I mentioned. So some of the key metrics and achievements that we can see on this slide, there have been these reductions have really contributed to attainment of the 150 microgram PM2.5 standard. That's a 24-hour average period. Also the 65 microgram 24-hour average PM2.5 standard. And most recently, attainment of the 15 microgram annual average PM2.5 standard. And then we were also making significant progress toward other PM2.5 standards. And so this strategy is really effective towards these achievements. More specifically, the most recent winter season, the 2024 to 2025 period, November through February, we continued to make progress. And this slide just shows a few of the key points that we can take away. I'll just cover a few of them here. This reduction program, we've maintained low average PM2.5 concentrations across all Valley counties this most recent season. We've I'd be ready to proceed. I guess the technical go ahead. I've received it. So Madam Chair, whenever we're ready. All right. And then just as the last point on here, we'll have a slide later in the presentation as well on the PM 2.5 chemical speciation components that we track as well to help us understand where the improvements are happening. We've mentioned the latest rule amendments. The district's rule 4901 is the rule that's responsible and carries these requirements. And this is the 6th winter season under the implementation of the most recent rule amendments that happened in 2019. And that rule established hotspot counties in Madera, Fresno, and Kern. And that mostly just means that the curtailment thresholds are lower than they are in the other counties. But the rule also, and actually before I proceed, that graphic on the left-hand side of the slide is the attempt to help understand the difference in the curtailment thresholds between the hotspot counties and the non-hotspot counties. And the rule also increased public education and incentives, and also placed requirements for fireplace remodels, real estate transfers, and some other enhanced visibility limitations. This slide, we can take a look at the trends and just the changes over time in the number of days that were declared a no burning day. You can see that the bottom blue row is the most recent winter season, and that's under the current rule requirements. And then that period of time, that red bar delineates the before and after the rule 2019 rule amendments. And although there are just slightly fewer curtailments that happened, no burning days that happened in this most recent season, but overall very comparable to the previous season. All right, I'd previously mentioned that I'd show an air quality index chart, and here we are. So this is a stacked chart for the good and moderate days, which are represented in green and yellow. And then those days are the days that are under the air quality standards. The orange and red days are the unhealthy for sensitive groups and unhealthy categories, or the red also includes if there were any days above. And what we can see here is the latest year, the latest season is on the right, it's highlighted with the red box. And we can compare that to the past seasons over time. The earliest on the left, we can see on the left that more than half of those days in the valley were unhealthy and above, unhealthy for sensitive groups and above. Whereas in the most recent season, we see pretty much a flip in that, where there's far more green and yellow days than there are days above the standard in the orange and red. So that's the main takeaway here. And as a note, the hashed portion is just a comparison. There was a recent new AQI standard set with the 2024 new PM 2.5 standards. So the AQI scale changed. That hashed part just represents what it would have looked like under the previous AQI scale. So we haven't really changed anything. There's a little bit of a swap in the moderate and good days. This isn't really a change overall there. It's just the trend is still going up. We can see with the green and yellow, but that's what the hash sections mean. And this is just a closer look at most recent season compared to the earliest season where the PM 2.5 monitoring. We can see the very early season, far more red days than green days. Most recent season, it's opposite, far more green days than red days. Just another great accomplishment, good way to take a look at this. So just this slide helps us understand that there has been a significant decrease in the number of days that have exceeded the 35 microgram per cubic meter standard. The light blue row at the top is just a summary and average of days prior to that 2019 rule amendment, where the green row is an average of days for the seasons after the 2019 rule amendment. And these reductions by month and then by total for the whole season, these are also very great to see with a 67% decrease in this period compared to the earlier periods. So another way that we can continue to look at this over time is I've been talking about the 2019 rule amendments, but of course there were other rule amendments prior to that. And each time there's a rule amendment, this reduction in PM 2.5 concentrations, we can see a correlation when we group it like this. So these taller columns just represent the average PM 2.5 in the valley before and after each rule amendment. And we can see over time that the concentrations are going down overall, as specifically after rule amendments. So that's very helpful. And another takeaway from here, the earlier years on the left, each month pretty much contributes equally to the overall PM 2.5. Whereas on the right, the most recent season, we can see smaller contributions from the November and February months to the overall PM 2.5, which is just another way to see that it reveals that we might be contracting the season a little bit. We're just becoming a little bit short. I mean, the rural season is still the same, but when we see the worst concentration seems to be getting smaller. And I had also previously mentioned evening concentrations. So this slide is just to try to help us see if there's a pattern, which we do see for the evening hours. On the left is 6 p.m. to the right is 6 a.m. So this is the overnight PM 2.5 concentrations. The top line is an average for the earlier years of PM 2.5 monitoring in the valley. We can see that line not only is higher, where the high concentrations are in the 40 to 50 microgram range, but there's also more of a curve compared to the lowest line, which is the most recent season. It was an average of the more recent 5 seasons together, actually. So it's a pretty good look at average. The overall line is lower. All the values are below 20, but there's also less prominent change in the curve. So that's another improvement there's another way we can see the improvements that are happening at the time of the day when the PM 2.5 matters the most in the winter, typically had been the highest. And I'll spend just a couple of slides real quick summarizing the meteorology effects on the PM 2.5 concentrations in the valley. This recent season, we saw some alternating patterns of good and poor atmospheric dispersion. These are periods where PM 2.5 was either more or less able to dissipate away from the surface. And so during these periods of poor dispersion, we would typically see higher PM 2.5 concentrations. And the worst period of poor dispersion in this recent season was peaking around December 7th, which is also when we saw the highest PM 2.5 concentrations in the valley. So the metric for good dispersion or poor dispersion is this atmospheric stability parameter. In this slide, the solid blue bars represent the stability parameter for the recent season. And the hashed bars represent an average of the past 5 seasons. It just gives us something to compare to. Shown here month by month, we can see that January much more stable this year than average Januaries. December slightly more. February about as dispersive as past averages. So it's the negative bars that go downward. Those are more dispersive, more favorable for good PM 2.5. This is the same stability parameter, but it's on a valley-wide basis. So instead of just month by month, it's over the whole season. The latest season is on the right, with the blue bars representing the stability and the green line representing the average PM 2.5 in the valley. There's going to be some cool animations here. What this helps us understand is we can see that on the right, the most recent winter season had a higher average stability, but it's still low PM 2.5 average concentration. There's the animation one. And what we can learn from that by looking at this is if we look at previous winter seasons with similar stability, we can then compare where was the PM 2.5 average at that time. So a more recent year with similar stability, PM 2.5 slightly higher. You go back a little more, PM 2.5 is even higher. And so that's what we learned from this is even though we had a year with higher average stability parameter, we still see very low PM 2.5 on average. And just as a reference, the left vertical axis is the measurement in the units for the PM 2.5. So somewhere around 17. And lastly, for me anyway, before I hand to Heather, I had mentioned previously about the different chemical speciation, the chemical components of the PM 2.5. And this is similarly broken down by rule amendment period, just to try to get an idea on average. We can see that the 2 main components of the PM 2.5, the ammonium nitrate and the organic carbon, have tended to decrease over time as well. So we do take a look at this and it helps us understand the effectiveness of the rule controls and emissions reductions.
Madam Chair, could we ask questions at this point before we move on to the balance?
That might be a good way to proceed, just so things don't get.
If you want to start with the north, then.
Are there any questions on this portion in the north in Modesto?
No questions in the north.
Any questions in the south? Seeing none, any questions here in Fresno?
Obviously. The question I have is, this is residential wood burning. How does the forest fires around us, in the north and the south, in the mountains, how does that impact this? And it would seem like it has to impact this in some way or another, and that's not accounted for here, or is it?
It's not included in the presentation specifically. There certainly are effects from forest fires, and when they happen, of course, the magnitude of the fire can have big impact and distance if they're very close. But very big fires, even farther away, can have huge amounts of emissions that come into the valley. And those emissions can absolutely overwhelm and dwarf the emissions that come from stationary, so other sources that we're tracking. But this presentation is just meant to highlight and track the effectiveness of the overall residential wood smoke reduction strategy. So there's not that component specifically in here from forest fires.
And through the chair, if I could add to that, this report is primarily focused on the winter time as well. And so there is PM 2.5 throughout the year. We do see, for example, primarily in the summer, it gets into fall now as well. You will see some higher PM 2.5, sometimes significantly higher PM 2.5 when there's a wildfire impact around us, or even from far away sometimes. In the wintertime, you see lesser of that. And, it's just due to the nature of when fires happen throughout the year. So this is really focused on the winter when you have this combination of factors. You have the stagnation events that we're all really familiar with, the inversion layer. You have that really rapid buildup of emissions. And you have and really two main sources of pollution during the wintertime. You've got the activities like these, right? What we call direct PM. So when you have, any kind of combustion going on, residential wood burning, another kind of combustion, or you have what are called secondary PM 2.5, which is when you have products of combustion, other pollutants, and you actually form PM 2.5 in the atmosphere as a chemical kind of reaction. It's not emitted as PM 2.5, it actually becomes PM 2.5. And so wildfires aren't as much of an issue in the wintertime, which is really the focus of the report. So just wanted to kind of add that as well.
Just to add to that, and I know we have to get going, but in January, I took my family to Disneyland and drove through the fires in the wintertime in Southern California. Now, I know that was Southern California, but they were popping up everywhere, and that was in the wintertime.
It's becoming more, yes, you're correct. This has become, the lines are getting a bit blurred here, in terms of, relative to what we might have seen, more in the past. Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. With all due respect, I don't mean to.
Sorry, through the chair, of course. Thank you.
Mr. Cunha?
Yes. Samir, 100% correct on the timelines. This is the wood stove, the wood fireplaces, and all of that. In this part, we took agriculture out of the equation now. Agriculture would burn from October to maybe February, March, because the wintertime, that's when we burned with the right emission movement of air. So now we took that out of the equation. Agriculture is no longer burning. If it is very, very, very less than 0.001% for disease, okay? Has that been brought into the equation, taking the ag piece, because we reduce so many 900 or 1 million tons or whatever it is. What does that look like with this? Because at the wintertime, you were identifying wood smoke, correct? Wood smoke could have come from us too, correct? Because it's wood. In the presentations you've made on ag burn, it's been huge, the reduction. How does that fall into this? Does that even make these bars even smaller? Because we've taken our piece out of it from the north to the south. Any comment or thoughts, or am I in la la land?
I have a thought. You're not in la la land, and just from the Just through the chair, may I thank you. Thank you, Senator, for the reminder.
It's okay. Your two commentators are doing well.
It just from the slides that have been shown, one thing that this makes me think of a little bit, I'd like to point out is the parts of the presentation that have focused on the evening time PM 2.5 concentrations. I think we like to present that to try to eke out some of the differences on how we can tell whether it's residential wood burning versus potentially other types of smoke, like maybe open burning that's happening or forest fires. And if I may, I have, Chair, one more thought about Mr. Madero's. Okay. And if in seasons in the past when we have seen shorter periods of wildfire impacts in the winter season, we would certainly be able to bring into these slides an analysis of the way we see it. And one of the ways that we would likely see that is in like on the slide here on the chemical speciation profile. We would expect to see samples during that time have a very much elevated organic carbon portion, and then we would be able to correlate that with the known fires that are nearby. So we would help to eke that out also and be able to communicate that in here on winter seasons when we see that.
And through the chair, just want to also note, as you look at the fabulous new annual report that was just recently put out, you'll also start seeing some even more detailed information showing up in the report about the change in emissions. So for example, on page 47 of that report, if you just jot that down, if you don't have it in front of you, are different pie charts for where the emissions are coming from. You'll see the what we call ag waste burning is down to 2%. It'll be even lower than that, I think, in the future. That number used to be a lot larger actually in the past. And so you are seeing that reduction show up as those reductions are occurring. And you also see some pretty, I don't have the page number right now, but there's a good spread in here about those reductions in open burning. We do think that you're going to see some benefit show up as we keep, and I think this goes back to your comment, Mr. Cunha, about the study agency. I think over time, we're going to have to continue to really drill down on what it is that continues to contribute to our, even though it's going down in the wintertime, we do know that there's still, some pretty significant PM 2.5. So how much of that is still coming from residential wood burning? We still think that there is some, even with all this effort, how much of it's coming from other sources? I think as we think about new measures in the future, it's going to be really important that the science be very up to date and accurate so that we're focusing on the things that make the most impact. And I just want to note that's another area. And we do have a really detailed wildfire update. I think it was probably, it was fairly recently, but if you're interested to see kind of the review of this last season, just want to also just refresh your memories on that item. And we're happy to share that if anybody wants to see it, but we do a pretty detailed review of that as well.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and continue.
Thank you. All right. Jumping right in. Of course, we wouldn't be talking about this program without talking about outreach, which is a critical component of our residential wood smoke reduction effort. And as a matter of fact, the big piece of this multifaceted effort is our Change Out program, the incentive program that we help residents in the valley switch out their open hearth fireplaces to either natural gas, a heat pump, or maybe they just completely decommission it altogether. During this past season, we issued 2,117 vouchers to do that. It was about 8 million worth, that was the calendar year. Over the course of the season, we did almost 1,000. So it was a busy winter season, but notably 31,000 vouchers plus 31.5 have been issued to the tune of about 69 million over the course of maybe the last 10, 15 years that we've been doing this program and this work to reduce wood smoke in the neighborhoods. Public education for the residential wood smoke strategy certainly has a lot of elements. This year, as we've done previously, a big emphasis on protecting public health. We've also gone completely to the please avoid wood burning. No longer are we checking before burning, we just ask the public to avoid it altogether. We're also working to warn residents. There's a couple weeks during the year, as we've noted, depending on the weather and sort of the other factors, where it gets pretty stagnant. And we're putting out press releases and talking to the public and warning them about the impact that wood smoke has on their health. And certainly in that conversation, always we're talking about the grant program, encouraging them to take advantage of the alternatives that we support with lots of incentives. And hopefully you've seen during this winter season the efforts of our various outreach, including paid advertising, earned exposure, which is conversations that happened about us or posts that get shared, press coverage, news stories, and then our own accounts, our owned media, our social media accounts, our website, of which I was happy to share, is lovely and far more accessible than it used to be. We chatted last time. And please follow our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Nextdoor, all of those spaces to continue having conversations with the public. How do we let them know? Traditional advertising for sure. We've got commercials with board members, and you've seen billboards up and down the valley. We also go across social. There's a lot of interactions on the digital space, which also takes us into anytime the public is searching. We do search engine marketing, and we deliver information. If they're searching about wood smoke or fireplaces, it'll deliver our ads and encourage them to make changes. We have the information in our smartphone app. Hopefully you get that. You can also report complaints through that app. And it's definitely our primary focus to talk to the weather reporters, have those relationships with Valley meteorologists, and just in general, be in touch with those that are communicating the impacts of air quality and what's happening during the winter season. Look at those statistics, some awesome statistics. We've got 30,000 calls into our smog info line. That's been around for some time. 230,000 visits specifically to the page that has all the information for residential wood smoke reduction, including what the call is for that day, how to change your device, and the impacts to your health. We got 270 public complaints that came into the agency for suspected illegal activity. And of course, over the course of all of these efforts, 37 million impressions across all of our platforms. Outreach being key, communicating this information to the public, leaning on our partners like you to do the same. A couple of examples, multilingual, you see on the screen. There's Connie Young in the middle. We've got a nice commercial about her converting to a heat pump, definitely bilingual, but just all of the different means to communicate to the public, both the opportunities we provide and the choosing not to burn that needs to happen. Of course, compliance is a piece of this. We had about over 3,000 hours of staff in the field responding on nights and weekends to the wood smoke activity. We do use low light camera technology. It helps to see that smoke in the dark at night. But the big piece of that is it increases public awareness. If someone gets a violation from us, they end up going to smoke school, as we call it, which is just an opportunity for us to have a conversation with them about the impacts of wood smoke and impact to health and what happens in neighborhoods and why we make this effort to reduce it. Smoke school. It's just a internal reference of they sit down with the not smoking school. Thank you. Non-smoking school. Oh, shoot. Looking ahead, as Samir noted, we need to drill down into this strategy, take a look at the source apportionments, continue working with the public to promote the grants and get the action out of the message that the benefits of wood smoke reduction. And certainly we even had a workshop last week. We will continue with our enhancements to the strategy as we move forward for the PM 2.5 standard. Questions?
Do we have any questions in Modesto?
No questions in Modesto.
Any questions in Bakersfield? Seeing none, any questions here in Fresno?
I'd just like to compliment you on, and the district, in recognizing the importance of extensive outreach, communication with this committee, communication with the public, and an understanding that what you're doing is for the public at large and not based upon what you as district staff can get out of participation with this committee. I think that's extremely important, and you should be complimented for the job that you're doing, especially with your website and the efforts that are being made as it relates to what the common purpose is for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for noting the comprehensive approach. We are working hard.
Comment, Instagram. My organization, Nisei Farmers League, just went into the high-tech world.
All right.
I actually have an Instagram, I think it's an account.
Yes.
I'm learning.
I'm going to go find you. We're going to follow you.
Very dangerous. I have my staff watching me very carefully. But yes, I ended up getting one day
Okay.
250 people.
In just one day?
Yeah, and I was amazed because but also what comes on to that. So, but I think Samir, the board and you guys, the staff and everybody, the entire outreach team with Jamie Holtz beginning from the very beginning, you've done a great job on this program. And I think it really shows to the amount of air quality you've done versus AK-47 attitude that you've worked with the people, you've gave incentives to help, forcing them into something where maybe they couldn't afford it. And you've absolutely done a tremendous job. And again, as a note in the minutes, being it's recorded, I think this is why CARB needs to be listening and understanding what the great job this district does in incentive-based programs in collaboration with the industries, the businesses, the communities, versus being forced to go buy a $2 million or $1.5 million garbage truck electric. And they have to buy 2 for 1. But excellent job to all of you, Samir, the team. And again, I think the graphs are absolutely important, and Touche, very good. And I like page 37. It's absolutely excellent. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We'll move on to item 11, District's Annual Air Toxics Report for 2024.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Seth Lane. I'm a program manager here at the district. So a quick background on air toxics. The state and federal governments have identified over 1,700 substances that, when suspended in the air, can end up in your body through various pathways and could cause a risk to your health. These substances at sufficient concentrations and exposure can potentially impact human health. These impacts can vary, but when dealing with air toxics, we're talking about health impacts such as cancer, long-term chronic health impacts, or short-term acute health impacts. Some of the more common air toxic examples are diesel particulate matter, benzene, hexavalent chrome, and formaldehyde. To address air toxics in the Valley, the district operates a multifaceted and comprehensive program that addresses air toxics on various fronts. And we refer to this approach as the district's Integrated Air Toxics Program. Within the Integrated Air Toxics Program, we combine local, state, and federal requirements under one umbrella. The first one to mention is that the district implements the state's air toxics or hotspots regulation that addresses health risks from air toxics from existing facilities. We also evaluate new or modified sources of air toxic emissions, making sure we don't allow new health risk situations to be created from these new and expanding operations. We implement a large number of regulations designed to reduce risk from air toxics on a facility basis as well. We assist land use agencies by providing our expertise related to addressing and mitigating potential air toxic risks from new development projects under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And last on the list here, which is a major component of our integrated approach, are the clean air projects funded through the district's grants and incentive programs. And these result in major emission reductions, which includes toxics such as diesel particulate matter. So to address air toxics from existing stationary source facilities, the district implements the state's AB 2588 air toxics hotspot regulation. And using the state's program guidelines, facilities submit plans and reports that characterize and quantify their air toxic emissions, which are reviewed by the district. Using that information, the district performs a prioritization, which is a conservative health risk screening assessment. And the results of that prioritization puts facilities in one of 3 categories, either low, intermediate, or a high priority category, and they all have different requirements. Low facilities would not be required to do anything else at that time. Intermediate facilities wouldn't require anything at that time, but would come up for quadrennial reporting. And high priority facilities would require a further assessment. So to make that final assessment, a more refined health risk assessment is required. And that uses complex and very conservative computer modeling of their potential to create a health risk. Now, based on the results of the health risk assessment, a public meeting to inform the neighbors of the potential risk from the facility may be required. And the highest risk facilities would have to make modifications to their operations to reduce the risk they're creating to the point where they're no longer at that level of risk. So this slide provides a summary of our recent work in the program as we continue to assess facilities in the Valley. Since 2016, we've completed assessments for more than 7,500 Valley facilities through 2024. Of those, more than 5,600 are conditionally exempt from the state regulation at that time, and nearly 1,700 are intermediate priority facilities requiring periodic update summary evaluations. There were 157 high priority facilities that through a refined health risk assessment were determined to be low or intermediate risk facilities. And there are 24 high priority facilities that are currently being evaluated with a refined health risk assessment. And all facilities categorized as intermediate priority or risk have continuing emission reporting requirements under the program to ensure that a facility is reassessed if necessary. So the previous few slides on AB 2588 were all about existing sources and their emissions. But when we receive an application for a permit to operate, we analyze the potential health risks to determine if that operation results in an increase of air toxics. And we assist lead agencies to do the same thing under CEQA. For stationary sources, we do this with a risk management review or RMR. This process is similar to the prioritization, screening, and health risk assessment process I described for hotspots. But for newer modified sources, we utilize worst case potential emissions since the equipment's not yet in operation. We perform this analysis for all proposed increases in toxic emissions, and very health conservative worst case conditions are assumed, such as the potential emissions, which are the maximum allowed emission levels, stagnant air conditions, and long-term exposure. And if the operation cannot pass the risk assessment with the best available control technology for air toxics, it's not an approvable project as proposed. So we also implement a large number of regulations that are aimed at specific types of facilities or operations to further reduce air toxic emissions in the Valley. The district is responsible for implementing, through our permitting and inspection processes, local, state, and federal rules and regulations that reduce air toxics. The state regulations are called air toxic control measures, or ATCMs, and apply to a fairly wide variety of sources, with a few mentioned on this slide. And the federal regulations are generally called MACT standards for maximum achievable control technology. There are approximately 150 MACT standards for various source categories, including aerospace coatings and wood preservings. Key in our integrated program is the incentive grant programs that bring about reductions in NOx and PM, but also achieve collateral reductions in air toxics as a result of those clean air projects. The district has administered more than $7.2 billion toward clean air projects in the Valley, resulting in significant emission reductions. There have been over 37,000 diesel engines replaced, resulting in significant reductions of diesel particulate matter, which is critical to reducing the public's health risk. Through these incentive grant programs and other efforts mentioned here today to reduce air toxic in the Valley, there's been a major reduction in cancer risk from breathing air in the Valley. And one indicator of the success is demonstrated in CARB's 2023 California Air Toxics Assessment, or CATA. The assessment uses a detailed emissions inventory, meteorological data, and modeling. The figures on this slide indicate a downward cancer risk trend in the Valley, where there's been a 55% decrease in cancer risk from air toxics from 2012 to 2017. It is important to note that diesel particulate matter continues to be the primary air toxic contributing to the Valley's cancer risk. And the primary contributor of diesel emissions in the Valley is from mobile sources under state and federal jurisdiction. As mentioned, and per the state's recent assessment, DPM from mobile sources is the primary contributor to air toxic cancer risk in the Valley, which total more than 85% of the risk. VOCs contributed a smaller portion of the risk, including benzene and formaldehyde, which are emitted primarily from gasoline-driven light-duty passenger vehicles. And heavy metals also contribute a fraction of the risk, including cadmium, nickel, and lead, which are emitted from miscellaneous mobile sources and certain industrial stationary sources. Related to emission inventory, AB 617 required the state to develop a uniform statewide system of annual reporting of criteria and toxic emissions. Emissions inventory data is critical to understanding emission sources and related health risks. As a result, CARB created the CTR regulation, which requires additional information of each facility on an annual basis. And facilities have been reporting under the CTR for several years now. The district will continue to implement the requirements of the CTR for Valley facilities by compiling the related data, quantifying and reviewing emissions data, and then sending that inventory data over to CARB. And the district also plays an important role by helping businesses understand how to comply with air toxic rules and requirements. And we work with applicants who need assistance in reducing their potential air toxic impacts from new sources of emissions. We continue to assist land use agencies in the Valley with their analyses to address air toxic impacts, and we engage the public through community involvement. We provide multilingual outreach, including notices of significant permitting actions. And with that, that concludes the presentation. So I'll turn it back over to the chair if there's any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Are there any questions, comments in Modesto?
Yes, I have a question.
Do you have a question through the chair?
Yes, with respect to the CATA data, so it comes from CARB's CATA technical report that's referenced for 2023, but the most recent data is a reflection of 2017. Was the CRT, did it replace the CATA in terms of tracking that? And because that's 8-year-old data, and I think we've achieved some additional reductions or health benefits and to that 8-year-old data.
Yeah, that's a good question. Why is the CATA data 2017 inventory? That's the most recent year that CATA has, but CATA is still continuing. The CTR hasn't replaced it, but the CTR information we collect will be included in CATA. So 2017 was actually before CTR was implemented, which came a few years later. And the next update in the CATA will include CTR data because it should be for 2020 years, the 2020 inventory year. It's a little behind because there's a lot of work to put together. They collect the inventory. CARB does this. They collect the inventory from various sources, and then they have to model it. And there's a review period, and it's kind of extensive. But I've been talking with the people who work on the CATA, and the next rollout, they didn't give a date, but it should be for 2020 year as well. So you'd have 2012, 2017, and 2020.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other comments in Modesto? Seeing none, we'll go ahead. Thank you. Any questions or comments in Bakersfield? Seeing none, we'll move to Fresno. Any questions or comments?
Just a question. CARB's reporting, I mean, can't you anticipate that CARB's reporting will be delayed even further in light of their budget cuts and the inability to devote staff to this type of thing in the future?
That's a good question.
Based on what we heard today, they don't have time to come to our meetings on a monthly basis. So I would assume it's going to be difficult to keep a schedule in light of what you've indicated.
Yeah, I'll just, we'll certainly keep you posted on any impacts that we see on that front or any other kind of critical fronts, as to impacts to the stakeholders that are represented here. So I think it's a very valid question to understand, what other impacts, may result from some of the budget issues that we're seeing. We'll definitely keep you posted on that.
Well, through the chair, this is an excellent report. Thank you. I wanted to give a shout out to the air toxics team and the modeling team that do the health risk assessments as part of the permitting process. In my experience, you have an excellent team that are able to analyze. I've had some projects that have gone through where the engineer handling the permitting review, working with air toxics, has come back with potential recommendations that have had a significant positive impact on projects going through permitting. So I appreciate the work that your staff is doing. This is an excellent report. And I think that when the 2020 update comes out, you'll see an even more significant reduction in cancer for population here. Thank you, Mr. Lane. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We'll go ahead and move to item 12, AB 617, implementation updates.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the CAC. My name is Stephanie Ng, and I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources here at the Valley Air District, here to provide you an update on AB 617 implementation since our last CAC meeting. Just as way of background, we do continue to meet with all 4 of our CARB selected community steering committees to implement AB 617 across really the whole Valley. Again, those communities are Shafter, Fresno, Stockton, and Harbin-Lamont. A few things that we're working on kind of in the recent times is a few months back, we did provide an update to you all that we have 2 communities, Fresno and Shafter, that have hit their 5-year mark, which kind of as state law writes, it's the kind of the time frame that the SERP is for. And so with now that we are in May, we've hit our first quarterly meeting, which will be their first kind of transitioned meeting. We're meeting at a much lower frequency. We used to do monthly meetings, and we've transitioned now to quarterly meetings. And again, the purpose behind this is to allow us to continue to do more community engagement work, really in a lot of communities throughout the whole Valley that really want to engage with us in this type of work. And so again, with these quarterly meetings, there'll be more of a routine check-in of kind of the commitments that we still have remaining with these communities, including, check-in on enforcement activities, check-in on the community air monitoring that we're doing, as well as checking in on some of those high priority incentive measures that we still have remaining with these communities. One of those meetings will be in person for our Shafter community, which is, as always, a great opportunity to continue to meet with community members, businesses, and local governments to continue to kind of move forward our SERP implementation and really wrap that kind of the work that we're doing up in these committees. We're also gearing up for another combined lawnmower exchange event and tune-in, tune-up event. We've talked about these events before. They're a really great opportunity to really kind of reduce all the, any barriers for participating in the program. It's a way that we bring together multiple district programs for Valley residents to take advantage of. At this event that we're having in Stockton in June, we have at least on the lawnmower replacement side, we have over 500 mowers reserved for this event. So we're anticipating it to be a really popular program for community members to take advantage of. Again, they'll also have the opportunity to have an emissions test on their vehicle, should they need that, as well as sign up for a free air purifier. So we're really excited for a great event that's going to bring together, again, multiple district programs for residents to take advantage of. We also should have our representative from CARB joining us to give an update on their side.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. And hello, CAC members. My name is Brian Moore, and I work in the Office of Community Air Protection. And we kind of work on AB 617 implementation from the state level. And I did want to I have 2 quick updates. But before that, I just wanted to piggyback on something Committee Member Cunha said. I do want to say that the San Joaquin Valley has been really creative and efficient with how they've been implementing this program. And we have suggested many of San Joaquin Valley's processes kind of as best practices across the state. And so I do appreciate Stephanie and her team's work. I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to San Joaquin Valley right now. So we do appreciate all your work. And the two main statewide updates I have is that this summer we have 2 CARB board items. The first will be in June, where we are kind of reconstituting our AB 617 consultation group. So by law, CARB has to work with a lot of stakeholders with developing this program, including community-based organizations, academics, other state agencies, as well as air districts are on this kind of multi-stakeholder consultation group. So in June, we just had a big update of our program last year. And so the consultation group's been kind of quiet, but we're starting it up again this June. So when we get closer to that, to June, I can share the agenda and the item with you and all the documentation from that if any of you would like to join. And then the following month after that, in July, we're doing our annual program progress report to our board. So this is kind of every year we take stock of the last year in the program and share it with our CARB board, and air district staff will also participate, management participate in that process. So yeah, those are our 2 big updates. And if anyone has any questions for CARB about AB 617, yeah, I can take any of those now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions or comments in Modesto?
Through the chair, I have a comment in Modesto.
Please go ahead.
This question is more for Stephanie. Regarding those events that you have where you bring all those programs together and you bring them to the communities, like, is there a minimum requirement for that? And how does one go about finding out if they're able to do an event in their community?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, this is an opportunity that we have kind of through AB 617, and these are typically kind of through the process that we have with AB 617. We're able to work with community members to identify certain measures that they want to kind of use the funding for in their communities. And so in Stockton, they identified a few residential programs such as lawn and garden, such as the vehicle repair program and this Purify program, which allowed us to kind of hold this event in the Stockton community. There isn't necessarily, I think, a threshold or anything like that for it to happen, but this was really kind of a priority of the community to have these programs available to the residents that are in the Stockton AB 617 community. And we really took the opportunity to break down again any barriers for participating in these by holding this type of event in Stockton. So that's kind of how this event came about.
Any other questions or comments in Modesto?
Do you have a date on the Stockton event?
Saturday, June 28th. And I'm happy to share through our clerk the information for this event. Again, the mower side, just because there's a lot of prep that needs to happen. On the mower side, we have really full reservations, and we're kind of getting through a wait list at this point. But there is still an opportunity to, of course, show up, see how the event is going. And the vehicle repair side and the opportunity to sign up for a purifier still exists as well.
Any questions or comments in Bakersfield? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and start with Mr. Trusto here in Fresno.
Excuse me.
Was that an accident? Okay. Mr. Cunha?
Yes, I just have to ask this. I just have to ask this question, Brian. I just got to ask it. There's no way I can get away from this. We don't have to do a cake bake sale for you, because you're going to still reporting with the EJAC, correct? Are you safe?
Yes,
I am.
I am safe. I will be here. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you need a cake bake sale, you let us know.
Well, after this legislative session, I will let you know. But yeah, I think we are all good. Yeah.
Listen.
We have had I know it's a joke, but we had a lot of support from the legislature with this program, and it looks like we're getting some really tangible emissions reductions and exposure reductions. So yeah, we're in it for the long haul. So yeah, I will be here.
Right. And the greatest success is human beings working together. And you developed this program with these EJAG communities, with the Air District in concert with all of the partners, everybody in a community. And you're able to achieve some great reductions, but you've also been able to listen to the people in those rural communities, and that is the most important. So I commend you for that. I would definitely hope that the legislature, I hope that the administration of CARB doesn't decide now to remove you as well, because of, maybe I will use this word very carefully. It's called retaliation. Because of waivers, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I thank you very much working with the district, but especially with our rural communities. I think the projects have been a tremendous success. I've heard nothing but great things. Every workshop that has happened, from the car exchange program to the filters, to the sidewalks you put in, one in Huron, I believe it was, not Huron, excuse me, Arvin, where they had to walk through the mud and all of that. And it was just a disaster. So great projects. Thank you for your commitment and working with the district staff and with our communities. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's just from a personal note, it's been kind of, it's not exaggeration to say life-changing, being able to work throughout the Central Valley and the Bay Area and all these communities. Yeah, it's been a great experience personally for me over the last 8 or so years as well. So thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. We'll go ahead and move on to item 13, Outreach and Communications Report. Is this actually you, Jamie? Just checking.
Happy Air Quality Awareness Week. I don't know if you were aware, but it's Air Quality Awareness Week. We're doing.
This is your
Oh, there you go. We have quite a bit of social media that's happening, and we are doing lots of outreach. We've kind of started end of March, and it's ongoing. We are at health fairs, we're at PTA meetings, we're at school coffee clubs, we're giving presentations at a variety of places. So we are out in the community, and my team is busy up and down the valley. As I mentioned last month, if you have an event and want us there, please let us know, and we'll do everything we can to get folks out there. We do post on a regular basis. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on Nextdoor. We even have a tiny little Threads account, which is kind of a new one. And we're kind of always watching kind of that world. One that actually has a lot of success for us recently is LinkedIn. It's kind of the more professional social media site. And we're using that in conjunction with our HR team when we have recruitments. And it's a great way to kind of, it's a little less kind of touchy-feely and more like professional business. We have a job, come work for us, we're awesome. And then the last thing I have today, our English annual report is on the street. We just got it in office here a few days ago. We are currently translating it into Spanish, so we'll have a Spanish version of this as well. Probably later today, we will be putting 3 copies in the mail to each of you. So you can grab one on your way out the door, or you can look for that to arrive in the mail. Folks in the region, sorry, it hasn't quite made it to the regions yet, but you should see it, if not by the end of the week, early next week, to the address that we have on file for you. It is a great resource. It's award-winning. What's great about it, what I like to tell people, don't let the 60 pages intimidate you. It's easy to just pick up and read maybe one of the stories and flip through it and say, oh, well, I'm not really interested in that, but oh my goodness, I am interested in the over 1.04 billion in funding that we've given out over the last year. So you can kind of flip through it and find that area that is most important to you and read a story about that. We highlight local individuals. We highlight, it's got a lot of local photos in it. Almost all the photos are local. It's all produced in-house, and it's really just a testament to all the great work that gets done, both by this organization, by this CAC, and by the organization as a whole. So you will find that out on the street and look in your mailbox. Once we get the Spanish version in-house, I assume that it might be a 3-week turnaround for that, because we are still translating. We'll get that printed and mailed out to you as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions in Modesto?
No questions in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in Bakersfield? Seeing none, are there any questions here in Fresno?
Don't go past Instagram right now. You already gave me some other names, and you blew the valve here. No, just I can handle Instagram, I think. So, but Jamie, you guys have done one heck of a job on your, and you continue with your report. It's yeah, it's not a long document, but it's a great document, and to all of the entire, to the board, to you, to Samir, the team. Even if it's Ryan or Shiraz or Todd, or let's see who, oh, Brian, I can't forget Brian, right? I can't forget that. I'll get in trouble. But again, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, this, you had all these programs. Is there a smoke room program too?
Smoke school.
You know,
it's like traffic school. It's very painful, Manuel. We're going to send it to you if you don't behave.
Thank you again very much.
Any other questions or comments in Fresno? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to CAC member comments. Are there any comments in Modesto?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could. I wanted to point to the legislative analyst report with regard to CARB's budget for 25-26. And while they're experiencing a reduction to $1.2 billion to support CARB's activities, the reductions are really focused on some general fund money that was one-time money from previous years that they're holding, and that they are adding, according to the LAO, an increase of 118 positions for the coming 25-26 year. And CARB's also asked through the budget trailer bill for some additional authority around levying fees to fund certain costs. It goes into some conversation, but the LAO is recommending against that broadened authority. And so I would just point to my colleagues on the CAC to further information about CARB's budget can be found in the LAO's report recommending some budget actions for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in Modesto or comments?
No, it's
Seeing none?
comments in Modesto.
Thank you. We'll move to Bakersfield. Any comments in Bakersfield? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to Fresno. Any comments in Fresno? Mr. Trusso?
At the last meeting, we had discussed modifying the CAC formation language to include language to avoid the issue we had with filling in the chairman. I just wanted to check up on that.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of points that were raised at the last meeting that are going to require probably some time to work through. We'll talk to the chair, and ultimately any changes to the bylaws would require governing board approval. But we'll definitely provide a better update maybe at the next meeting as to where some of those ideas are before we ultimately take any changes to the board. So we'll look into that and get back to you.
And through the chair, I wanted to ask if all of the interest groups had an elected chair for their specific interest group.
Through the chair, the city representatives do not have a chair for that interest group.
The environmental and the industry ag have one?
Yes, yes. I believe it's Ms. Deming and Mr. Cunha for those two respective.
I just wanted to comment and thank Ms. Pitt for her quick research on issues as it relates to the budget. And that seems, or it can be inferred that reinforces there may be a retaliatory aspect to the position taken by CARB as represented by Mr. Benjamin. That's just an inference based on what we've seen today.
Thank you, sir. I just have a question. Being a city representative, what is the process of getting a chair represented? What do we go through for that?
Through the chair, I believe we need to call a meeting to order of the chair, interest group chairs, or I'm sorry, I might be.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, maybe
the city representatives.
Right, through the chair, if I could jump in a little bit on that one. I think it's been done in a couple of different ways in the past, but according to the bylaws, there would need to be a duly noticed meeting, I think, of the interest group. I think at times we try to do that, I think in conjunction maybe with like a CAC meeting, to try to help facilitate that. But basically the city members would have to have a public meeting to basically have that discussion and, take action. I think if I'm wrong, I'll definitely correct that statement. So I think, and maybe the larger question that you're asking, if I could, is there something we could be doing, together with the city interest group to help, maybe address that, not having a chair. And so it's something I'm certainly happy to help work with you all to see if we can make that happen. So if there's interest amongst the city members to try to have that meeting, we'll take a look at the bylaws and maybe I'll work with you not only as a chair, but also as a member. We can maybe just reach out, poll, and kind of see what the next steps might be. That's okay with, I'm just looking around the room, maybe all the regions for the city members, but if there's interest.
Through the chair, also, I'd like to add that San Joaquin County has their city selection committee scheduled for the 8th. So this week they should be appointing us some city representatives. So it might be an idea to wait until those representatives are also appointed. So you have a full committee to pull from.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to pull that meeting together this week anyway. So I think it's just a question of like, can we, well, anybody who's appointed by whenever we're able to, basically work to make that next step happen. So, but I'm just looking around to make sure. I assume everybody would be okay and interested in trying to move that forward. I'm just looking at primarily the city representatives. Are there any concerns or any questions about the need to have a city chair to assist with kind of the larger role on the CAC? I'm not seeing anybody objecting to that, so I think we could help make that happen.
So based on what you've indicated, probably the best way is to have a special meeting before the general meeting of the committee.
That's definitely one potential avenue. And I think, if there seems to be more interest in that, I mean, I think that's something, and I'm looking, and we'll double check kind of just the precedents and the bylaws on that. But I think if that just makes it easier, to make that happen, that's certainly one way to do it.
Thank you.
Through the chair, this Denise and sorry, I'm here in Modesto. Question, is there an update on Merced's city representative? I noticed we're a little vacant.
Through the chair, yes. A few weeks ago, Merced City Selection Committee met and they appointed Michael Amabile from Los Banos and Jose Moran from Livingston as the alternate. So they were appointed, I believe, a few weeks ago, and they've been added. They don't reflect on the roll call from last month because they weren't members as of that point. So in the next meeting, they'll reflect on the roll call.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Chair, we used to assume we did always prior to the CAC, we would hold those meetings because it was easier. So people would come 15 minutes ahead of time and do that. And we used to, and it made it easier to help accommodate rather than having a separate whole meeting, do it 15 minutes before. I know Dennis and I were talking about it. And I remember that was the way we used to do some of the stuff. So if that works, that's great. One last comment is I would do support that we watch CARB's budget very carefully, and that CARB should not be an entity to charge fees when it wants to, just like it's done with the truck rule. The $30 registration should only be tied to DMV, not an agency wanting to dictate fees, just like the State Water Board does, or even some other agencies. They just start taking control and they use what they call impacted community fees or social committee of impact fees, whatever it is. But CARB should not have that authority. And I support we watch that CARB budget very carefully, but I agree with the mayor. This is I believe very carefully, a retaliation against the San Joaquin Valley because of our great success we've been doing versus if CARB's intent is to abandon the valley, then maybe CARB needs to be looked at, and we don't need CARB, and we just need the 34 air districts working with EPA Region 9. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll move on to volunteer to represent the report during the governing board meeting. I nominate Mr. Cunha.
I second that. Gee.
But it's a volunteer.
Yes, absolutely. Be honored to do so. Thank you,
sir. So we'll go ahead and adjourn and just note that the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Thank you.